Hi, this is Karley Cunningham, and I am an outlaw.
Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. And on this week's episode, I'm really excited to be interviewing Karley Cunningham, who is calling all the way from Canada, so thanks for being an international guest of the show. Karley, are you ready to inspire fellow Out Bosses?
Bring it on. I'm good to go.
I love it. Okay. Karley is a former pro athlete, the author of 4 well-respected publications, a sought-after speaker, and a mentor for several national and international business organizations. As the founder, big thinker, and creative strategist at Big Bold Brand, Inc., and having built 3 successful businesses, Karley knows what it takes to start, build, and lead a company that delivers results. She deeply believes in the practice of givers gain, and because of this philosophy, she is a well-known and networked person. So, Karley, I'm really thrilled to be interviewing you. I think you're an ideal guest for the show, just given your experience as an entrepreneur over the past several years, decades. We'll get into how long you've been doing this work. To kick off the interview, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your business and what makes it unique?
Perfect. Thanks. My business, I own a branding company. I'll grab my soapbox and pull it out right away. I have a standing position that branding is not marketing, and that seems to be the crux that starts a lot of conversations. So when I say I am a branding strategist or a branding expert, people say back to me, they go, oh, so you're in marketing. And that just opens a whole conversation for me that I'm really always excited to jump into. In the traditional sense of brand, if that's the way companies are looking at it and using it, we've figured out that they're only actually tapping into 5% of their brand's potential. So when I hear those words, oh, you're in marketing, I get really excited because I can open up all sorts of opportunities for business owners.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't think I quite understand that. And I know I have a lot of listeners who do, so they're probably like, Rhodes, come on, catch up. But I was reading this, I was reading this book about Generation Z. Some people refer to this generation younger than the millennials as digital natives. And one of the things that's really important to this younger generation is everything being customized, including young people, whether they're in business or not, having their own brand. And so I hear this a lot. So break it down for us, because I need to learn. Oh,
you should have warned me. I would have pulled up my own PowerPoint presentation.
Yes,
but let's dive in.
Cool, awesome.
So I'm trying to figure out. Let's jump into my own journey and how this came about a little later. But let's talk about the differences between branding and marketing. First of all, they're 2 completely different words with different definitions. But if we simplify it down, marketing is taking an action. It's sending out a signal, be it an ad, be it advertising is the best example I can give. You post an ad in the paper. God forbid the digital natives are like, what is that? But you post an ad on Instagram, and it's put out there to gain a response. Hey, we have a sale. This is what's going on in our business. Get 25% off. And what marketers are looking to do is they're looking to measure that. Are they getting a direct hit, a yes or a no? In the digital language, a 0 or a 1. And so marketing is really about what you do and what you offer in any given moment. Branding, and I think Jeff Bezos said it the best, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And whenever I present on that, I pause and I let the room full of people think about that. And you'll see the light bulb go off with a few people, and I'll follow that up with, how many of you are scared by that? Is that a little intimidating? And hands go up in the room, because what those people are realizing is that if brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, it is the culmination of experiences that someone or a group of people have had with you in any sort of touch point. So it could be a voicemail. It could be walking by your billboard. It could be dealing with one of your customer service representatives if you have a team. It's all these experiences, or could be just one, that relies on people's perception of who you are or who your business is. Is that making sense so far?
This makes a ton of sense. So let me just repeat it back, because I think it's worth saying again, is this kind of marketing is taking that action, whether you see something in old school print media, like a newspaper, if you still read those, or you're on Instagram and you see something around a sale, versus this idea of branding, like Jeff Bezos, what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I think that, yeah, as you said that, I'm like, oh, yes, and how much control do you have over that? I think that maybe that's where the fear lies, is that we think that, when people visit our website, they see kind of our tagline and that's what they're repeating back. And probably 9 times out of 10, that's not necessarily how people retain who you are, what your business does. And so thank you for breaking that down. I know that's
welcome.
pretty basic for what you do. I think it's super helpful. And I know that definitely will help our audience.
And this is super important for business owners and addressing that fear of, oh, whoa, how do I control that?
Yeah.
The answer to that is actually a really good definition of what I do. I help business owners develop the clarity for their business so they can control that.
Develop the clarity for their business so that they can control it. Yeah.
Clarity around who they are, what they do, the value they deliver, the specific people they serve, their ideal clients. If we're talking about heart-based businesses, you really want to work with people that you like, people that you would have at your family dinner table. So I help business owners get clear on those, plus their value proposition, and I could go on. But it's really about that clarity and delivering that consistently that allows you to control of how you show up in the world and the impressions that you set.
I think you just gave a great example of your own branding around this is what you do. You're helping business owners getting clarity around their brand. I think that's great. If we can all just say how we help, how we kind of add value to the people that we're serving, if we're in a service-based business or if we're delivering a service, I think that's super, super valuable. So let's go through your origin story a little bit. How did you arrive here you've had several businesses. This is the business right now. Have you always been an entrepreneur or did you work for other people? Take us through your origin story a little bit.
I was thinking about that last night because I was listening to a few of your other podcasts and I knew that question was going to come up. And one thing that hit me that I never really thought about, I was thinking about how I saw a friend post yesterday and it said, I'm the rainbow sheep in the family. I always used to say I'm the black sheep, but I actually like I'm the rainbow sheep better, and the graphic was pretty cute. Yeah. So I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the queer. I'm the one who left home, the only one who lives far away from my family. I am the athlete. There's all these things that make me that rainbow or a black sheep. And I was thinking about the entrepreneur piece, and I thought, wow, I'm, in my close family, I'm the only one. I thought, no, hold on a minute. My grandmother used to have a side hustle. And it all of a sudden dawned on me. I'm like, oh my God, it's so obvious. But I have been entrepreneurial minded and running my own little businesses since I was a kid. I remember when I used to horseback ride, and I loved drawing and creating horses. And for some of the small horse shows that they had, I would paint T-shirts that were horse themed. And so I sold those. And for a while, I had my own jewelry business with my mom and my aunt. They would take orders at work and they would bring them home, and it was my job to produce the orders. So it just always has been for me. And then I went through college and got into the workforce, and again, kind of felt like I didn't fit. There's a consistent string and theme through my story of not feeling like I fit, which I'm sure is really familiar for a lot of the listeners on the show. And so I got into the workforce. I started out as a graphic designer and moved through several different companies because I came into the industry just before the tech crash. So lots of things going on, lots of action, lots of companies moving and shifting and growing and shrinking. And so the tech crash happened, and I happened to, kind of bounce between, I think it was 5 different agencies in 6 years, never really finding that fit. And that's in and around the time that I started racing mountain bike as well. So it came to a point where I was racing nationally, and I went to my boss 6 months in advance, and I said, listen, here's the time that I need off for this year. And the most important, time is for nationals. And he looked at me and goes, I can't guarantee you that time off. And I thought, well, that's a problem. I was a sponsored rider, and I needed to get my way across Canada to compete in nationals that year. And by nature, I'm a planner. So there's all these, competing forces at work here. And my cycling coach at the time happened to own his own business. And he's like, well, hey, what if I taught you, not only worked with you as a cyclist, but what if I taught you how to run your own business? And build it up. I thought, that's an interesting proposal. And so over the course of 6 months, that's what we did. And within months, I walked in and handed my boss a resignation letter.
That's awesome. Just having that natural mentorship from your coach, right? Not only to coach you, but to coach you as a business owner. I mean, what a gift. As you were sharing your story, I'm curious, just as being, a former pro athlete, you had mentioned that you were sponsored. How much does that translate into being a business owner as well? Short of your coach actually showing you the ropes of running a business, I'm just wondering if there are similarities that you see between that and being an entrepreneur as well.
That's a really great question. Where I go to with that is brand is everything.
Yeah.
So maybe a little less about running a business, but at the same time, I can also translate the life of an athlete, and the structure of training is no different than the structure of running a business. And so it's interesting for me, business mindset learnings and business language, I have a strong understanding, and I've been doing this a long time, but the mindset stuff kind of bounces off my forehead. It's like flicking a penny at me and then watching it bounce off. But if I take sport mindset, I can apply that directly to business. And so being an athlete, and I was an athlete from a young age. I was a high-performing athlete by the time I was 7 or 8 years old. I was being groomed to be one of the next top figure skaters in the world as a pair skater. And it was all about structure and learning how to operate within structure, setting goals, learning visualization, all the things that come with being a high-performing athlete apply directly to business. They just talk about it differently. They use different language. And so the business of sport, or the language of sport, really works for me in business.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think I wasn't a pro athlete, but I definitely competed a lot up through college as an endurance athlete, so a runner. And I definitely agree with you. I think there's something about that sports mindset, and in particular as an endurance athlete, and how that translates into running your own business where you do get tested. And I definitely apply that kind of sports mindset into what I do. So I thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Just on your origin story, when you were talking about working for other people and, the struggle to try to fit in and to feel that you belong wherever you're working, I'm curious in the businesses that you've had in the past and in your business now, what might be one or two things that you do to really try to welcome other folks who've traditionally felt kind of excluded in more big corporate workplaces?
That's a great question. I immediately went to a phrase that when my wife was in the business with me, we used the term land of the misfit toys. I don't know if you've seen that Christmas special where Rudolph gets lost and he ends up with the elf who wants to be a dentist and the abominable snowman who actually loves everybody. And so it ends up being this group of misfit toys, and that's where they end up, is in the land of misfit toys. And so that's how I've kind of always felt. And I believe strongly in like attracts like, and I often find myself just naturally surrounded by the people who never kind of felt like they fit in.
Yeah.
I mean, that also raises the question to me, had any of us in our formative years in high school when it was really tough, did any of us really feel like we fit in? So at the same time, things that I do, it's honoring what people bring to the table. Really stepping back and seeing, watching what their strengths are and doing your best to allow them to operate in that place, I think is very, very important.
I love that analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say through yoga, when I first started out, there was this mysterious concept to me of holding space for others. And I noticed just the difference of the feel in the room when you were training with or had a teacher at the front of the room who knew how to hold space. And so for me, that's always an important aspect of being able to hold the space for others to explore their creativity or explore the answer to the question, or creating a safe space for, no idea is stupid. Let's just get it out there because who knows where it's going to go.
Yeah. And I think that definitely goes back to what you were talking about in terms of honoring what people are bringing to the table and just acknowledging that. I think that goes a long way of, wow, you really want to hear what I have to say. And I think you're also right in terms of this kind of concept of the land of the misfit toys. where did any of us ever feel like we really belonged? There's this kind of theory in kind of workplace culture where this concept of covering, where we all, like 75% of us, even those who are kind of the most enfranchised in the workplace, withhold certain aspects that they're not showing up authentically because of the fear that other people may judge them. So I think you're right on in terms of just asking that question. I think many people would say, no, here's where I didn't fit in. And so the fact that you're really just holding space for folks and welcoming them in is huge. Before we go to a sponsorship break, I have one more question for you. And it's just right now, you're doing a lot of really incredible work around branding. What is that one thing that is really inspiring you to wake up every day and do your best? Like, what's making your heart sing right now?
I am always directed right back to my purpose, which is, often where I start with companies when we build their brand is understanding what's your why. And for me, my why is helping businesses thrive and succeed. I have a strong belief that small businesses are the ones that will create the change we need in this world, because we're the ones who have the agility to pivot on a dime. If we figure out something's not working, it's not like turning that flow ship. It's the ability to literally turn around and go, okay, what can we do differently tomorrow to help fulfill what it is, our mission in this world?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm inspired by the new clients that show up, the prospects who are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, or who are stuck, but they need to get back to that why and have that reignite their own passion. I really just enjoy the energy and enthusiasm of working with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I like what you said about the small businesses. We are really nimble, for many of us who, I don't know how we're defining small businesses, but I think a lot of the folks who tune into the show are part of that community, right? And you're right. You get that kind of instant feedback, especially if you have some kind of online offering where you can tell right away, yeah, we've got something here, or no, there's not interest, move on to the next idea. And you can do that pretty quickly versus if you're a giant corporation, it's like steering the Titanic a little bit. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. We're going to go to a quick sponsorship break and we'll come back in just a moment. Hey, Outbosses, Rhodes Perry here. As you all know, part of my passion for this podcast is to empower you and fellow LGBT entrepreneurs to cultivate a feeling of purpose and belonging in your business. To know that you can show up and be the most authentic version of yourself. Purpose, belonging, and workplace culture are concepts I take seriously in my own consulting business. In fact, I'm on a mission to empower leaders just like you and those on their way to joining us to cultivate cultures of belonging. In my upcoming book, Belonging at Work, I share some of my personal struggles of coming out as a trans guy in the workplace and how I leverage this experience as one of my business superpowers. Now, I'm on a mission to support you in taking simple actions that will make a world of difference for anyone who has ever felt as if they needed to hide important aspects of themselves on the job. When you commit to purchasing a special, limited edition copy of the book, a portion of your purchase will support expanding workplace opportunities for fellow transgender and non-binary people. An added bonus, your story about what it means to belong at work will be featured on the book's website to inspire others. You're ready to belong at work now. To learn more, visit rhodesonamazon.com or text 444-999 and type the word belong. Again, that's rhodesonamazon.com or text 444-999 and type belong. Okay, Karley, so we're going to go into,
Hello.
Hey, welcome back. So we are going into talking a little bit more about what brings you to the Rainbow family and how that impacts your business. And one of the first questions I always like to ask is if you could take us down the road of memory lane, I guess, or maybe not some of the great memories, but part of our lived experiences of where it may have been difficult for you to be 100% out in your business or maybe when you were working for someone else. Tell us what was going on then and how you worked around it, because I think that can absolutely help some of our listeners who are really struggling with navigating how out can I be in business.
Sure. I think my biggest challenge was multi-pronged or multi-layered. And I think back to when I moved to Vancouver and I was starting up my business and I was learning the art of networking and connecting. And I joined a very conservative, traditional trade organization. And I was the youngest person in the room often. So I was in my late 20s. I was building a business. It was growing quickly. And I just didn't find myself surrounded by like people. So, having said earlier that I find that like attracts like, I was in this foreign environment of, I wasn't seeing myself show up anywhere. I wasn't seeing any other out entrepreneurs. I wasn't seeing a lot of women. I wasn't seeing people who were my age. And so that was really uncomfortable. It was really disconcerting. It brought up a lot of fears. It brought up a lot of imposter syndrome. And so how I dealt with that is I just sought to meld into the crowd and, change the way that I dress, showed up really feminine. I mean, I think I show up pretty neutral. Nowadays, that's where I'm most comfortable. And I just kind of chameleoned myself into who and what I thought those people needed to be to refer me business or to work with me. And so that went on for a number of years. The business was growing. I had a business partner at the time who was not LGBTQ, and it just became a really uncomfortable space for me because I wasn't showing up authentically. I have always had the ability, as you can imagine, as a figure skater at a young age, we're put on stage, we're put in character, and every routine that we had was a different character. So I have always been very, very good at being a chameleon. But I never really realized until that experience and until the amount of pressure that was created inside myself of not feeling alignment, how much that doesn't work and doesn't work for me. And those who know me would tell you what you see is what you get with me. I don't sugarcoat. I am direct and I am honest. And, my clients love that about me. And so I found myself hiring a business coach. And in my first session, I sat down with him, and I respected this man so, so much. And he was a leader in this organization. And I sat down with him and he said, "Karley, how can I help you?" And I could feel the tears welling up. And I thought, oh God, I'm gonna cry in front of him. This is not good. And he just held space for me. And I just blurted out. I said, I'm 27 years old, and I was 33. I said, I'm 33. I said, I own property in Vancouver. I own a successful business that's growing. I'm being asked to join all of these business organizations. My girlfriend is tall, fit, and gorgeous. Add on all these other things that people would consider to be a successful life. And I said, and I'm miserable. Mm-hmm. I am absolutely miserable. And from there started an amazing coaching relationship. And Ray was able to break down the things that I had built up around me and put me back into alignment with self, starting with, what is your purpose in this world? What do you want to be doing? What are your values? And I found out that I was so values misaligned with my business partner, with my girlfriend at the time, with how I was living my life. I essentially had to deconstruct who I was and then put it all back together. The gift in that journey, and it wasn't easy, and it was painful, and it was, it's like shedding tons and tons of layers at the same time, shedding tons and tons of weight on my shoulders. The gift of that was it taught me through the process what that produced was how I build brands with companies. I had to learn how to show up authentically in the world. I had to learn how to align myself with my values and my purpose and my mission and choose the customer, actually choose the customer, not just take whoever showed up on the doorstep with some money. I had to make conscious choice of who do I want to work with? How do I want to be treated as a service provider? And so that was the greatest gift because that is my company as it is today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for walking us through that because that's real, right? I mean, so many of us feel this pressure And like you said, I mean, from a young age, you were socialized as a figure skater, as a performer, to take on these different characters and receive praise for that, right? And so you carry that with you. And so many of us do that in different ways, where we're told by our family or our communities, this is what success looks like. And when you get there, everything's going to be better. And like you said, you had these, from the outside perspective, everything was going for you in a way. And yet you felt there was something off. And to work with someone who could just be that kind of objective voice of your values are kind of a little out of alignment, and so let's work together. And I mean, you had to go to the root of who you are and what you believe in, and that is really, really hard work. And I think for some of us within the Rainbow family, I mean, we have to do that in some respects around our sexual orientation or our gender identity, because again, the world is saying this is how you're supposed to be, and yet, for a lot of us, it's like, well, something's a little off here, whether it's around who you're attracted to or how you see your gender, and you got to do that work again in a different way. And so I guess that leads to the next question, which is, when you think about your superpowers, like the LGBT superpowers and how you can leverage those in business, I'm wondering, I definitely see a lot of superpowers just in the story that you shared with us. But in your own words, how would you say your lived experiences of maybe coming out or, just being a part of the Rainbow family has allowed you to stand out as a business owner?
It's funny, I wrote a couple things down when you mentioned this earlier before we started the interview, and I wrote down my superpower is the ability to be a chameleon. And what I mean by that is as you said, being a performer, being put on stage, taking on roles, you learn to put yourself in other people's shoes. So that, for me, is a huge advantage when working with clients and trying to understand what people are seeing through their lens. I can make that transference pretty quickly. And what that then allows me to do is be a clarifier. Ultimately, that's what I do. I pull answers out of people. I facilitate sessions where we put tons and tons of information on the board, and I'm able to step in the business owner's shoes. I'm able to step in their client's shoes and find that equilibrium of balance and clarify what's really going on or clarify what it is they're really saying. When I work with business owners to help them find clarity, it's that thing of you can't see the forest for your trees. You're so in your business, you know it viscerally. It's there. All the answers are there, but you're just used to saying it so many different ways to different audiences, and some of those audiences may not align with you. You might decide after working with me that, wow, we're dumping a whole customer segment because it just makes everybody here miserable because it's in misalignment with our values. But it's finding that story, it's finding the right words to describe the company, and that then leads to uniqueness. So I would say, my ability to be a chameleon and my ability to clarify.
Yeah. And as you were saying, this concept of being a chameleon, I think the word that came up for me is this idea of empathy, right? Is that you can step into the perspective of other people's shoes. And wow, like what a skill that is. And how much better could the world be if more of us really honed in on that skill of just trying to really understand perspectives that are different from our own lived experiences. And I definitely can see that, for being a part of the LGBT community, especially if you're raised by family where people have an expectation of what your life will look like and who your life partner will be. And that expectation is really different than, my partner is a person of the same sex, or my gender is different than the way that you had thought that it would be as a child, if you're thinking about your family. I think that ability to empathize, at least with people who have different sexual orientations or gender identities, because of the assumption that we are either straight or cisgender, right? And so, that's just kind of something that popped up in my mind. Maybe the way I'm.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're not really good at is being empathetic to ourselves. Is showing self-empathy. I was thinking about when you were saying that about how your family reacts. I mean, what mother doesn't imagine their daughter walking down the aisle in a white dress when they have a little girl, right? And but what girl doesn't imagine that? I mean, there are definitely some of us in the rainbow community that just never resonated. But I think that you watch enough television, you watch enough Hollywood, And that's kind of what you're structured to. You just go there. And so, talk about your mother being devastated. I think you also have to go through that exercise of what stories have I told myself that I'm supposed to be, that I'm supposed to do? What expectations have I set for myself that aren't true, or that don't get me excited, or that don't align with who I am?
Yeah.
I don't think we do enough of that in the queer community.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think it relates to the story that you shared earlier, where, from an outsider's perspective, everyone looked at your achievements and who was surrounding you, your business, where you were living. You were a success, right? And that was, the stories that you were telling yourself are like, these are the things that I need to do in order to be successful in life. And maybe the work that you did, right? I mean, you did a lot of work to kind of deconstruct all of that and then reimagine success exactly the way that it aligns with who you are. And you did the work, right? I think that that's a good reminder that we, as much as we have the ability to empathize with others, we have to hone in on being empathetic to ourselves, right? I really like that. I think that's great. For those who are listening, whether they're entrepreneurs or on the way to becoming an entrepreneur, what would be your advice to our listeners around showing up and being more authentic in our work?
Understanding your values and going deep on that. And I mean, I've been through so many different values tests and exercises, and you'll start to see common themes that, everybody uses different languages, we all speak different dialects, but noticing what those themes are, noticing what comes up for you, and learning to build your own structure and expectation around those. And when you can do that, when you can live in alignment with your values, everything just becomes so much more freeing. You start to attract business owners or the clients that you really, really want to work with. You attract great strategic partners simply because of that alignment, simply because you show up in the world and you act in the world in the same way, and you're not constantly finding yourself irritated by things that somebody does. And, the same coach that I was talking about earlier, he taught me, he goes, there's really only two reasons that you get irritated by someone. And he said, reason number one is because they're reflecting something back at you that you don't like about yourself. Reason number two is because they're in misalignment with your own values. And just using that tool has saved me so much time and energy and allowed me to move to that place of empathy with people. And it's interesting that you honed in on empathy with me. If my wife is listening to this, she was probably laughing because the profession that I have also lends me to be quite judgmental quite quickly, because I'm forced to evaluate things very, very quickly on the fly when I facilitate sessions with clients. So I love that you saw that. At the same time, it's, understanding your values moves you away from judgment.
Yeah. I really like that. As you were talking, I was also thinking about, this whole section, we're thinking about what brings us to the LGBT community. And as you probably know, there's a lot of barriers in the workplace for many of us. And I'm curious, in your own business, as you continue to grow and as you continue to have success in exactly the way that you define it, are there ways that you're thinking about giving back to LGBT communities, using your business as kind of a lever of social good? And if so, what are you doing now, or what are you considering doing in the future as you continue to grow and experience success in the ways that you want to have success?
Great question. I don't leverage my belonging in the family for my business. I think I've always, once I became comfortable with myself, being gay is just something else that I am. I mean, I'm an artist, I'm an athlete, I'm a business owner, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. I mean, the list goes on in our identity. And so being gay is just another line item. I am unapologetic about it. My wife used to be in the business with me, and we would co-facilitate sessions, and it was never an issue. I have one client who is very Christian and very active in his church, and I'm really lucky that he is who he is, and we have no issue with one another. I think when you bring a strong belief system that is anchored in doing good, I don't know that it matters what that is if you're treating people equally.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, last year I was invited to the Pride at Work community, which is a large organization here in Canada, and they were looking for someone to start up a breakfast event quarterly for women or those who identify as women in the community. And I thought, sure. I was recommended by a friend of mine who threw my name in the hat. She goes, "Oh, you have to, Lenore, go talk to Karley." And so we kicked off the breakfast, and at our first one, it was held at a quaint little venue, and I think we had 18 people. And the last one we hosted just over a year later from the first launch, I think we had almost 60.
Wow.
And so watching that community grow has been absolutely amazing. And what I've realized through those breakfasts and through the conversations and through the compliments of the women attending is that it's something that's really needed in our community.
Absolutely.
On the female side of business and business development, whether you're in a large organization or a small organization, what I'm really seeing is that the women in the queer community, for whatever reason, aren't well networked. They aren't well supported. And so I'm super excited to be able to just, again, hold that space, co-host that event, and make that happen.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. That's really huge. And that may feel big or small to you. I mean, however that lands for you, there's so many women, there's so many people broadly within the Rainbow family that are looking for possibility models in building businesses that do align with being authentic and just showing up, like you said, being direct, being yourself, and having that weight lifted off so that people can really tap into whatever their genius is to help other businesses or deliver a really awesome product. To see you, right, is huge. So, I mean, and it really speaks to go from an event with 18 people to then 60 just in the course of a year. You know, you're having a huge impact. And oftentimes I say this on the show a ton, but it's you really don't know how big your impact is until you hear from other people. So it'll be interesting to see that feedback as you continue to show up and just talk about, you know, the work that you do and how you can support other people. Okay, so we are now going into our bonus round where we'll have the chance to get to know Karley just a little bit better, gain some insights on how we can bring our whole selves to work, and then learn one way that we can stay in touch with Karley after today's conversation. Okay, Karley, are you ready for some quick fire questions?
As soon as you said bonus round, I started rubbing my hands together. The athlete kicked in.
Yes, all right, yes, I love the competitive spirit. All right, okay, so here you go. So finish the sentence for me. As an outboss, I believe
that everyone must show up authentically.
I love it. Okay, so do you have a mantra or a quote that you reference that helps you stay motivated in business, especially when things get tough?
5 feet, 10 feet.
Say more. What does that mean?
I was waiting for you to ask for the clarifier. When I'm on the trail, my sport right now is trail running. I used to listen to a lot of friends who would say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so scared about being in the woods because there's cougars and bears, and when are they going to get me?" And I mean, I live in North Vancouver, so, you know, the bear could literally be around the corner when I take the dog out in the morning.
Yeah.
But I find that if you spend your time worrying about those things, those big things, those big scary things that may never happen, you won't take that first step. And so when I'm on the trail, what I'm actually focused on and worried about is looking 5 feet in front of me to know where I'm stepping next, and then also remembering to look a little farther out and 10 feet in front of me. So you convert that to businesses. What am I going to achieve and accomplish? And what steps am I going to take today? What steps am I going to take this week? And then you can expand and contract it from there.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to break that down. I think that's really, really valuable for so many people listening and just kind of being in the present moment. And I like that kind of like 5 feet and then 10 feet, not like totally thinking about 20 years down the road, but just like, where are you now and where are you going to be 2 weeks from today, you know, and just kind of keep that in perspective, because so many things in business, especially if you're online, things change like by the second. So yeah, I think that's a really great mantra. Thank you.
I think I just blew up the quick bonus round.
It's okay. This is the good stuff. So thank you. Yeah. So can you share one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
Oh, one personal habit. Oh, tracking. I have a old school in-print calendar, and for me, sales actions are critical to my business. And so I challenged myself to do 5 sales actions a day, and I made them really flexible so that I would do them. I'm the kind of personality that I don't like being forced to do things I don't like to do. I mean, who does? But I really rail against them. And so I made that flexible enough and achievable enough that I was driven to do it. And so in that, what I do is I actually remember in kindergarten when they used to give you gold stars for doing things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like now the running watch that beeps when you've hit your 10,000 steps or shows you your stats for the day. So for me, I'll chase that hit of dopamine all day, every day. So I have a book of stars that compels me to do up to 80 sales actions a month.
The athlete in me sees the athlete in you, and I get that. It's this, like, those kind of little milestones. I got it. That totally resonates with me. Okay, so name one thing that you readily delegate in your business to stay focused on what you're good at.
I really suck at delegation, and that is kind of the next big thing that I'm tackling, but definitely editing.
Yeah. Editing, like copy online or...
Anything that I'm, after I write the first draft and I hit that stuck point, when you hit that stuck point, get it off your desk or get in a room and collaborate with somebody. Don't sit and stew on the stuck point. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I asked this question because I too suck at delegation. So I'm trying to get better. And so that's why I asked my guests. Okay, so what are you most grateful for being a business owner who is also an outboss?
What am I most grateful for? I think acceptance is the big answer, and I don't know that I could clarify that other than being grateful for my clients not caring.
Yeah,
who I'm married to. Yeah, they care about how I can help them and the relationship that we have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think that goes a step further. Is that perhaps there's some who are seeking you out because you are married to a woman, right? And that you understand, you're a part of the rainbow family, and that's going to help them, consider, whatever they're working on, that perspective is valued. That's great. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So 2 more questions for you. Can you share one piece of advice to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
Find a mentor. From the start, find someone who's been there, who's walked in your shoes, that can help you run faster, to get to the quicker steps faster. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
And I love the story that you shared where your coach was not only your mentor in sports, but also your mentor in business. And that's just such a gift. Okay.
That really taught me giver's gain.
Yeah, I love that.
The more you give, the more you get.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that again. I really like that in your bio. It's like giver's gain. So can you break that down really, really quickly for the audience?
Yeah, it comes back to that kind of universal, or the piggy bank, right? The every day, if you are being supportive of others, whenever you take an action that is unasked for but is welcomed, hold the door for someone. You smile at someone, and they look like they're having a rough day, and all of a sudden it compels them to smile. You see someone who needs a hand on the side of the street. You might not know them. You just walk over and you say, "Hey, I noticed your hands are full and you're about to drop that. Let me help you." Those are all, I see them as putting pennies or loonies up here in that piggy bank, and it's that karma buildup of eventually it will come back to you. You're not going to know how or when, but it just does.
Yeah.
I love, my week is not complete if I'm not giving referrals, and that's another thing I track in my sticker book and my sticker calendar, if you will. And the energy around that just builds and builds and builds, and it creates momentum for the business, which is great.
Yeah, thank you for breaking that down. And I feel the same. Like whenever people come to me and they say, "Rhodes, can you do this?" and it's totally out of my wheelhouse, it's like I can immediately think of like 5 to 6 people where I'm like, let me put you in touch with all of these awesome people. And it's just that I love doing that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So Karley, thank you again for being on the show. Before we go, can you...
pleasure.
Yeah, this has been great. Can you just share one way that we can stay in touch with you so that our listeners can learn more about what you do? And for those folks really struggling with their own brand, and I may take advantage of this too, like how do we connect? How can we work with you?
Business profile for me is on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook you can find me under Karley Cunningham. Karley is spelled Karley. Cunningham is just like Happy Days for our digital kids. You're going to have to go look that one up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, both at Brand Maven. Pretty much have us covered.
Excellent. All right. So, Outbosses, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. It is always my privilege to connect with you and so many inspiring outbosses like Karley. So for details from today's conversation, please check out the show notes at www.outentrepreneur.com. If that's too much to remember, just text 444-999 and type outboss, and you'll be in touch with the show that way. So as a next step, consider subscribing to the podcast. Leave a rating and review in iTunes so that I can continue to deliver really good content. And be sure to share the show with a friend or a loved one. And for now, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.